Welcome to 2 Cents Short of a Dollar, the show where we give our 2 cents and keep it 100. We're your hosts. That's Motiz. I'm Rue. Before we start, big shout out to my man Bryce Gower, who commented on the last Terrence Crawford, Israel Madrimov video. Really appreciate the comment. But I want to talk about Riyadh season today and just the reaction coming off the event. It was a really long event. I feel like I was watching it probably over 7 hours long, going through it. But before we jump into the main event and just the reaction to the main event, for me personally, I'm gonna give you my standout fight of the night was Martin Bakole versus Jared Anderson. I think it was the most exciting fight, and it's crazy because people were just saying, "Yo, watch out for this fight! Upset alert! Upset alert!" And even if you looked at the line, I think Bakole was like plus 250 or something like that. I'm like, oh yeah, that's a trap line right there. So Anderson showed heart, he showed grit, right? But he just looked outmatched in there. He looked like if he was the underdog. So that's my standout fight of the night. I thought it was super exciting. Bakole put on excellent performance. As we were watching it, you were telling me like it was just like an avalanche coming. You was just like, yo, this is inevitable. And I'm like, yeah, you don't think Anderson? He was like, it's inevitable. And indeed it was.
I'm not gonna lie, that's a good one. That's a good one for sure. And to be quite honest with you, that was gonna be my choice until I really sat and thought deeply about it. And I'm gonna go with the Rayo and Pitbull. I think that was kind of my fight that, that was my fight of the night, especially with how Rayo shocked me. I'm gonna be honest, the way he boxed beautifully, and he boxed in ways that I didn't think he was capable of doing, and really showed, we knew Pitbull was one-dimensional, but he really showed and weathered the storm, especially through the constant pressure, weaving, and I think Pitbull also was somewhat reserved. He was throwing those looping hooks, but you can kind of tell he didn't want to really just jump in there reckless, because Rayo had some pop, hit him with some shots and, had Pitbull kind of resetting. At certain times, you had Pitbull kind of backing up, like, let me try to switch things up. I can't be getting caught with these shots. So Rayo definitely, he deserved that. He definitely deserved that win for sure.
Yeah. And man, I'm happy for Rayo because he has that Chris Colbert loss on his record that he avenged, which I don't think he should have had that loss. But Rayo's a really good fighter, and I don't want people to be swayed by what happened with Edwin De Los Santos, right? But he also reminded me as well because I picked Pitbull as well. I'm just like, the pressure's too much because like that pressure's just really been breaking people down. But there was like I can't remember, but it was before the Rolly fight. Pitbull fought a guy, a relatively unknown guy, but a pretty tall guy, and
he was awkward and he was kind of like outboxing him.
Yeah, but like Pitbull won the fight, and he probably landed more in the harder shots. But the guy was using his length, right? But he wasn't as good a boxer as Rayo was, and that's kind of what it reminded me of. It's just that Rayo is better than that guy was. So Rayo just had to remind us, me included. I'll be the first to raise my hand. It's like, yo, I thought Pitbull's pressure was going to get to him, and it didn't. You know what I mean? So, big shout outs to Rayo there. 140 is an interesting division. It looks like those belts will keep just rotating around. So.
Yep.
Yeah, that may have been. Yeah, that performance was excellent. I maybe I'll give Rayo, from my standpoint, performance of the night, just like him on his own. You know what I mean? But that was excellent. The rest of the card was solid as well. David Morel, I didn't realize that the fight was at 175 prior to. So just like David Benavidez, they weren't able to get the stoppage, but I mean they won the fight. I think it was pretty clear he won the fight. Like the other guy had really good spurts. You know what I mean? You could tell he was a savvy veteran. But Morel has some stuff to clean up. But I didn't realize that he went to 175 saying he's chasing Benavidez. I think Beterbiev and Bivol is rescheduled for October. So I don't know if Benavidez and Morel potentially fight by end of the year, and then next year, you know what I mean? The winner of that fights the winner of Bivol Beterbiev. I would like to see that.
100%. It's funny too because you actually told me, he's like, yo, Morel's at 175. I'm like, what? Yeah. I'm like, you're really chasing Benavidez. I'm not even lying, the so-called boogeyman. But I think just moving up weight classes, 7 pounds is a lot, man. And I think Morel realized that when he got into the fight, that he couldn't necessarily just walk through and just stop him, So
yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of 7 pounds being a lot, let's do it. Let's get into the main event. Terrence Crawford versus Israel Madrimov. Terrence moved up from 147 to 154. And, Terrence won a unanimous decision, which actually was my prediction. But the fight didn't go anything like I thought it would go. I knew Madrimov was tough. I knew he was game. But I don't know, like Bud, I don't want to say he looked uncomfortable, but he didn't look like he knew. Like even going back and watching the fight, I think Terrence Crawford was losing the footing position, which is something I don't think I've ever seen Terrence Crawford lose, right? The battle of the outside foot, as he spent most of the fight in southpaw. And my stance on when Terrence goes southpaw is because he feels like there's some form of a threat here. You know what I mean? It's where he's just more naturally comfortable. But, some people are saying robbery. Some people are saying this is just. Some people are saying Terrence Crawford won even wider than the judges said. So just what's your reaction to the fight? What's your opinion on the fight?
I feel like the fight was very interesting going into the fight. I had Bud, stopping Israel Madrimov late in the fight. I believe I mentioned 11th round. It seemed like the fight was really a mental chess match. You can see them really thinking things through before they make their decision. Israel surprised me with the fact of really showing how awkward he was, really with the feinting. He didn't really throw as many looping hooks as I initially thought he was going to do in his previous fights. He adjusted really well, and he seemed for most of the duration of the fight, from round 1 to probably like round 8, he was in control. He was dictating the pace, kind of, stalking Bud. Bud was more so kind of reacting, trying to counterpunch him, see where he was coming, what angle he was going to come from. And boy, when I tell you that right hand was landing at will, it was landing at will. And I knew, for me, Bud was kind of in trouble in a way of not figuring him out when he was landing the right hand. And every time Bud is like shaking his head, nope, meaning that he did get caught with those punches. There was times I didn't even know he got caught, but Bud reacted, nope. And I don't know if Israel's power kind of had Bud a little hesitant to kind of jump in and get caught with shots, that he wouldn't want to get caught with. Moreover, on top of that, I also feel like, Bud really, in my personal opinion, I feel like Bud would have pressed him more like he did in the 11th round and really was like, yo, I got to go out there, leave it on the floor. I feel like he probably could have got the stoppage, It's just that he was, the awkwardness and the timing was really throwing him off. I don't know if the layoff of not being in the ring for a year kind of threw off Bud, but you could just tell like Bud was uncomfortable in there. And my main point is, there was one point where, Israel landed the right hand on Bud, pushed him back, and Bud went to orthodox. And that told me, yeah, Bud might be in a little bit of trouble here. Right. The fact that he went orthodox, the round ended, and I was like, yeah, he don't have no answer. He can't tell, how Israel's landing that right hand, and he has no answer for it. So, I think Israel was just more accurate. He controlled the pace of the fight. Bud had, I would say, the clearest rounds, which was 11 and 12 to me. But I don't know, man. That fight was really, really close, man.
Yeah. It was a really close fight. It's very hard to score. Very hard fight to score. What I will say though is, like, one thing we know about Bud historically, like if Bud gets hit, he'll sell out to get his back. You know what I'm saying? But he didn't do it that night. So something was happening, right? Maybe it was the power, maybe it was the strength, the awkwardness. But he definitely wasn't gonna. Bud is like, yo, I got to get my lick back. That's just always been his mentality. You get a good one on him, he's coming back to land back. But like you said, that right hand kept landing. It was surprising because Terrence Crawford is very good defensively. You know what I mean? But it's like it just kept landing and kept landing, and I was just like, whoa. Like, what's going on? Maybe it was the timing of it, accompanied with just the kind of like bouncing back and forth. It's a little Bivol-esque, right? And Madrimov trains with Bivol, just that rhythm. You would think it's easier to figure out, but it's hard to kind of time it. So, yeah, the right hand kept landing. And I think what makes the fight so hard is, I'll say Terrence landed more combinations, but Madrimov shots were maybe cleaner. Like, right? That right hand was probably landing cleaner, but he didn't really put anything together, right? He would land the right hand, even when he landed it in succession, landed the right hand, okay, little movement, landed the right hand, but it was never like a 1, 2, 3, right? The combinations more so came from Bud. So both guys were doing their thing. Like you said, it was a chess match. Very intense watching it. Like, I feel like I couldn't blink or I was going to miss something, right? Very intense. But one thing I'll say for Madrimov, it was like I said, it was hard to score, right? Like effective aggression. I'm like, who do I give that to? Ring generalship. Who do I give that? You know what I mean? Both guys seemed like they were doing, like you said, they were really thinking before they made a move, but defense, though, Madrimov made Crawford miss more than I've probably seen anybody make him miss. Just the movement, you know.
Bro, he made him miss a lot. Like
Yeah,
Bud's accuracy definitely was really low this fight. Like he made him miss a lot. And I
yeah,
felt like he just was in control throughout the whole duration of the fight. It's funny because I feel like if the roles were reversed, swapped, if Bud was Israel fighting like that and Israel was Bud, I think, a lot of the fan base will still say Bud won. You know what I mean? I think it kind of was like going in that, like, it was a lose-lose situation for Israel, unfortunately, right? Not saying you can't take the win from Bud, but it just goes to show how close it was. And that if you're favoring one person over the other, especially if you're favoring Bud, more than likely you was going to choose Bud regardless, unless it was like a clear wipeout.
yeah, yeah. Now I thought that was a close fight, but just piggybacking on what you said now. So based on what you said, when you watched the fight, who did you like? Who are you giving it to, or like what did you see as far as the victor? And do you think anything along the lines of a robbery happened here?
I don't think it was a robbery. I don't think it was a robbery. Initially, when I watched the fight, I was kind of like, I can definitely see Bud winning, but I was unsure. I went back, watched the fight, then I'm like, I had it a draw, you know. Then I watched it back for the third time, and now I'm like, I can see it still being a draw depending on how you scored the first 3 rounds. So I had it a draw again. But then, when I went back to really focus on those 2 rounds, just based off activity, I'm leaning towards Terrence Crawford winning.
Okay.
I'm leaning towards Terrence Crawford, but for me, I'll probably be more comfortable with a draw if I'm being completely honest. Like if I'm taking away Terrence Crawford's name, who he is, and Israel, and I'm factoring in like ring generalship, if I'm factoring in control of the fight, dictating the pace, for me, it would be a draw.
Yeah. Yeah. So I also don't think it was a robbery. I think this fight had a lot of pick 'em rounds, right? And maybe I could have potentially picked them that way, but you could have potentially picked them that way. But
Yeah.
I feel like it was just they were that close of rounds, especially the first 2 rounds. The first 2 rounds, I was just sitting there, I have my little notepad, and I'm just like, I don't know. I don't know. And I'm sitting there trying to think on it. And then ding, 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 the next round starts. I'm like, I'm sorry. I'm still trying to think about round one. Round two starts. I'm still trying to think on them. And those rounds, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and say this. I could go in there and I could find 6 rounds for each of them. So I kind of agree with you where I could definitely see a draw. And I think a draw probably is how I saw it because I was so undecided on those first 2 rounds that I'm like, okay, I'm gonna give 1 round to each of them,
Mm-hmm.
right, which makes the 6 rounds to 6 rounds. Now if someone says, hey, I saw those 2 rounds for Bud, which makes it 7-5, I'm like, okay, fair, they were pick 'em
Yeah.
rounds, I'm saying, I would just pick them that way. But then if someone says, hey, I saw those 2 rounds from Madrimov, I'm just like, hey, that's how you saw them. They were very tight pick 'em rounds. So I moral of the story, I don't see it as a robbery, but the rounds were so close, they had to go one way or another. And if someone said, hey, I saw them from a dream of, I'm like, yo, that's how you saw them. I get it. If you say you saw them for Terrence, that's how you saw them. I get it. I think it was a very close fight, extremely close fight. But the only thing that I'm going to say is, and this really has nothing to do with Terrence, it has everything to do with boxing, is just consistency. I just want consistency. You know what I mean? Because guys like Jermaine Ortiz, guys like Edwin De Los Santos, the notion is they didn't go in there and take it from the champ, so they can't get the W. Right? In this regard, I don't think this would be considered taking it from the champ. Right? Like I said, I'm good with the decision. I'm not looking for the decision to be changed, but I just consistency across the entire sport, not just when it's like guys who have a name like Terrence, right? Because then guys who put in hard work, like I said, like Jermaine Ortiz, those guys get screwed out of victories. You know what I mean? So I just want consistency. Either you have to take it from the champ or you don't. You know what I'm saying? Let's either do away with that or we're gonna enforce that. Is the only thing
I
I
agree.
want to reinforce.
100% agree. And I feel like people hide behind taking away from the champion to hide their own biases, because at this point in time, clearly we can tell it's not a champion thing. It's just who's the favorited fighter, right? Who's the more popular fighter in this case, right? And we
Mhm.
see it time and time again. So whenever someone comes up to me and say, you got to take it away from the champion, that just tells me you're a biased person. Because
Mhm.
you would not be saying that if the shoe's on the other foot, or if the person you're rooting for is not a champion. You know what I mean? So I think it's just a way for people or judges in general to sort of try to rob fighters.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And before we wrap up on this topic, though, After the fight, they asked Terrence about Canelo, and he seemed more hesitant to engage that topic than previously.
Yes.
So, do you think fighting at 54 kind of made him, realize what everyone realizes, that there's weight classes for a reason?
Absolutely. He went in there and he realized, like, man, like this fight was tougher than I anticipated. And this guy was stronger, and he confirmed that he was strong in that ring. So he's probably stronger than he anticipated as well. And the punching power, he felt it enough to not engage for most of the fight, clearly, because
Mhm.
if he could have walked through those punches, he absolutely would have, like he
Yeah,
did at 147.
right.
So, he had to be until he became desperate at the end. It was like, yo, I gotta let my hands go. F it. So I think he realizes jumping up now 2 more weight classes to fight someone like Canelo is like he could only imagine, like, yeah, this is
Yeah.
gonna be a different animal up there.
Yeah. I've been saying I don't want to see that fight. I don't want to see it for Crawford. I think Canelo's going to destroy him because Canelo's just too big, too strong, and you don't realize it till you get in there, right? Then it's like you're in there with a predator, and you're just
Yeah,
like, Jamel found out pretty quickly. Everything looks good on camera. Oh, he's this strong. I'm that strong, just from a glance. But once you're in there, then it's like, yo, I'm in a cage with a predator, and what I'm going to do here. So because I really don't think Bud needs that fight. I think it's just a cash out fight, right? Payday, you want payday, you know what I mean? It's that fight, but
mhm.
I'd rather Terrence just, compete at 54 and then call it quits when he's ready to call it quits. People have been saying Canelo's super strong, hits hard, he's going to stalk you down. People say he probably has the best chin in boxing. He's definitely up there, if GGG's retired, because GGG's chin is up there too, bro.
Yeah,
But yeah, it did seem like he kind of second guessed that. So once he has some time to debrief this fight and think about it, I would like to hear what he thinks about the Canelo situation again. Once again, I don't want that fight, but I would like to hear how he feels about it. Maybe a week after this fight that just happened, 2 weeks after.
agree.
Yeah. So make sure you guys jump in the comment section. Tell us, who did you have winning the fight? How did you score it? Do you think it was a robbery? We're both on record saying no, we don't think it's a robbery, but that's going around. Did you have Madrimov winning? Did you have Crawford winning? What do you want to see next for Terrence Crawford? And make sure you like and subscribe. 2 cents short of $1. We out.